Okay. So then what's the answer?
Easiest way is personally, from my point of view, is letting it get out of their system. Because it will eventually
Mm,
get out of their system when they find their group, when they find the worlds they like to visit, when they find like their own society. They'll calm down.
they settle.
People will change their mindset,
Yeah.
and it will just be completely different.
So would you say that it's about funneling the trolling to minimize the harm and create the most diverse invitations for trolls to exit off of that path and come into more community,
Yes,
more sense of belonging? Like everybody wins if they
yes,
can
because
get those needs met differently.
once they calm down, they can go into I don't want to say this, but to the main part of VR chat. Like they can socialize with everybody
Yeah.
because, like I said, VR chat initially is a game.
Yeah.
So people are thinking it's a game,
Right. Yeah.
and once they finish their game, they'll start doing side quests. When I say
Almost the mismarketing of calling this a game, because even VR chat calls this a game, right? So there's a misunderstanding in that, especially if it's the game is to do what? What's the goal here, right? And if I'm
there isn't
coming
one.
into it right with an expectation of a game, then I'm going to make up my own rules because I don't know how to get pleasure out of this game with no on ramp to invitation to real people that are saying, I'm a real person. I'm investing in you. I care about you. Let's show you around or whatever else. So it becomes a almost a, what happens in classrooms with young kids of you if you don't give them structure, they just turn chaotic naturally. So, but if you give
Yes,
them too much structure, then it shuts them down and they turn cranky and split different ways. So it's it feels like a mismarketing thing. It also feels like a lack of redirect and distractions to spin people into a realization that these are human beings. Um, and what's amazing to me is how many thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, I don't know, of worlds there are in here, but nobody's ever done a world about trolling that I have found or heard of that is actually like, what do we know about trolling? Let's build a journey, a pathway for people to see a mirror of themselves, but also get some new options if we could match that behavior and show it to them. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. Here's stories of people who have experienced trolling that didn't know and didn't call it trolling. They called it racism and homophobia and transphobia and a sexual attack. So that's not completely a question,
yes,
but it's definitely an inspiration from what you're saying. And I think the world that you gave me a tour of that you're modding in is probably one of the best examples I've seen outside of the stuff that I've built that does offer some kind of redirect or awareness of everybody can get dysregulated and everybody needs to have ways to leave that middle space and come back and feel like they went somewhere and they learned something. And maybe that learning was, oh, I was getting too activated, or that learning was, I wasn't listening, or that learning was, I needed to just bounce around and feel silly. Or so, yeah, I I'm so curious about that overall culture in here that everybody agrees on some level there's a problem with trolling, but nobody's actually so far really trying to build anything to reflect it back. Do you have any ideas of
yes.
why that is?
Um, Not entirely sure on that
Yeah.
because can't really bring it back to somebody in a
Mm.
world because it's one you have to be they have to be willing to go to a world like that, which most don't,
Yeah.
and it'll require lots of footage, experience from from other players. It'll be a gigantic project because
Mm.
it's not a simple make a world. You have to find the content. You have to find the people. You have to find the ones that will listen, the ones with an open mind. Even the trolls who have an open mind will have to hopefully be in there, and not just be a pain for the people who are trying to show them something. Plus, issue with many people, and it's very even for many modern people, is that people don't have much of an attention span when it comes to long things.
Hmm.
They rather have it
Yeah.
in bite-sized
Yeah.
pieces. So they would be in the world for 5 minutes and then skedaddle.
Yeah.
There needs to be a balance of time and attraction to
Yeah.
that kind of world.
Yeah.
You can't just tell them on a podium all this. They have to be
Hear ye,
entertained.
hear
They have to
ye. Thou
see
shalt not
visuals.
troll. Yeah. No, I hear you. It is complex. And I think part of the answer, very likely, is just you haven't had any psychologists in here that are actually really thinking from the culture inside. How do we not shame people, but also give people a different kind of mirror in here of what that feels like? And let it be a learning journey and completely entertaining, but also something that plants deep inside. And that is an initiation of sorts, but there's an awareness of this is an animation of trolling that is happening to me right now. I can push pause, I can push play, but I can see that direction of being targeted from the inside and realize, be able to look at statistics that pop up right after that of how many people come into this app, go into a public instance, and never come back. And recognizing
Yeah,
that, like, my surfing irritation off of people could be really breaking some of them. And I don't know it. And I'm not even curious about that.
my thing is if you ever look at VR chat comes in a, to me personally from what I've seen, it's a mix of people on Reddit, people on Twitter, people on YouTube, and those on 4chan. And
Mm.
those people can't interact very well together because you're giving the trolls they go from text, which can't do as much damage, having
Mm.
a physical form, having an actual voice. They could be a nuisance to somebody else physically. Now this is a digital it's a digital avatar. You're seeing them. They're in
Mm.
your face.
There's a part of me that's like, I was never raised around people using the N word or trans slurs or whatever. I never saw that. So I never pictured myself saying it. If I heard it in music, if I did, which was very rare, it was a question of, is that culturally true for that person? Or am I in a territory of like, this is just racism or other kinds of systemic injustice and bias and whatever. So,
Like me and some friends will say it to ourselves, like
mm,
in a group. Like we wouldn't go out in public just shout it and say it,
yeah.
but like in a group on like a private Discord call, we would say it jokingly because we're not aiming for somebody else. We would call each other that just as a joke. Now, because we know we're not dumb enough to say those words out in public.
And what
Um,
words specifically? Like the N word?
racial slurs, homophobic slurs, all those
Yeah.
kinds of
Yeah.
things. It stays in our circle. We're not spreading it around. We're not like
Do you think that that means no harm, no foul because nobody else heard it? Or do you think it could be leaking out in places you're not telling each other, you don't know that it's going outwards and going at people?
that goes on a person's maturity level. Let's say someone's 20 years old
Mm-hmm.
and they're hanging out with people that are saying that. They're 20. They barely just
Yeah.
got it. They barely got out of their teens. If they're hanging out with people, those were still ingrained in them. and they're still immature, so they'll probably spread that out. But let's say it's a bunch of 30-year-olds like me. I'm 30. I have friends who are like 36,
Mm-hmm.
34,
Yeah.
29. By that point, they've matured a bit, so they won't be spreading that. So it all depends on age range, maturity level, because even people who are 30-year-olds who are 30 can be immature and annoying because they just don't know better, I guess. Not sure. I think that's not really a good way to put it. I
Well,
wouldn't say they
really,
don't
what
know better. It's
we're
just that,
talking about brain filters, basically. Like when you hit
yeah,
25, if you are gendered as male from birth, your brain is finally completing the frontal lobe growth that you need to be able to regulate those moments, even though it might feel like a boost and a reward to use some of those terms. You're also recognizing the bigger impact it can have and the higher risk and consequence it can have. But I still really
yes.
wonder, like, is that incubating a type of acceptance of systemic oppression and or having unintended consequences to have that as a normal thing of a group culture? It's normal and okay for us to say things to each other that we know aren't targeting each other in a harmful way, but we're making it okay to joke about things that can be extremely harmful to people.
That is true. Uh, because some people may end up because this is true. Let's say with your friend group, you're saying those slurs. If you
Yeah.
make it a habit of saying those words, you may at some point
Yeah.
accidentally let it slip, even though you have that, even
Yeah.
though you have that filter. You may have a thing where a rock or something hits you in the foot
Yeah.
or something, and
Yeah.
you might end up saying that. So you're so used to saying it.
There's also the piece about I'm way more likely, if I've normalized that and I know it's just funny, to laugh or look away if somebody else is doing that around me. And actually, maybe even feel superior to them, if it's happening in public or whatever else, because it's like, oh, I know better than that. But it's kind of funny how they use that,
Yes.
or it's funny how that person reacted. I laugh at this when it's used in my friend group. And so I'm ready to laugh at this instead of do something or
Yes.
step in. Yeah.